Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast, where all accountants come to learn all the ways to grow your firm. And when you're in doubt, I am here to help you out. So if you're ready to learn and ready to grow your firm, then you're in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is Mike Meilinger, who started his first CPA practice in 1997, which he then sold in 2005. Mike is not one to sit around for too long, though, and in 2006, he started Meilinger Consulting, which is a CPA firm focused exclusively on litigation support, forensic services, divorce accounting, and business valuation. In 2011, Mike had the opportunity to start a new tax practice from the ground up within Meilinger Consulting. Today, Meilinger has doubled in size over the previous 3 years, has 10 full-time employees, and has further evolved into business that caters to the top 1% of business owners, and Mike only sees more opportunities ahead of him. And if you're like Mike or an accounting professional, and maybe you're just used to chasing clients around or just taking anyone who calls you or shows up in your office, or maybe even any referral that you get, you just take on, or you keep struggling with inconsistent cash flow during the off season, it's honestly not your fault. And I really understand that no one is teaching or even training you on how to fix those problems and really connect the dots in your firm. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. But I did create a selling without ever selling system, and I have my 8-week mastery training for accounting professionals. And I'm really excited because I'm offering you a free coaching session so I can share some of this information with you too, and really help you get to your ideal clients who end up coming to you so you can build the dream practice and grow 3 times in revenue just like Mike did. So if you've been in business for over 2 years, head on over to theabundantcall.com to schedule your free coaching session with yours truly, myself or my partner, Denise. Once again, head on over to theabundantcall.com. And before we start the show, I invite you to take a screenshot of today's episode on your phone when you are finished listening to it and post on LinkedIn. What is the most valuable lesson you learned from today's episode? And tag myself, Michelle Weinstein, and our amazing guest, Mike Meilinger, on LinkedIn. And share with us what's the most valuable lesson that you're going to learn today about how to stop giving away your tax tips away for free. So again, I invite you to take a screenshot, post it on your LinkedIn, and share it with us. And make sure to tag me, Michelle Weinstein, and Mike Meilinger, and I'll make sure to share it out. And I want to hear from more of you and listen and see, what did you explore today and how can you make that shift in your firm? All right, let's welcome our guest, Mike, to the show.
Hey, Michelle, how are you doing?
Good. I'm so happy to have you here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast because I definitely think you are one of those who has a life of abundance and really has done a great job growing a firm. And I think that you'll have a lot of knowledge to share with some of your peers. But before we get started with today's show, which everyone, just so you know, we're talking about what information to share. So sharing the right information and how to stop giving away tax tips away for free. So that's what we're talking about today. But Mike, do you want to share where you're from? What do you specialize in?
So my practice is located in Greenville, South Carolina, and our specialty is, high income tax planning and accounting for very successful business owners.
Awesome. And how many total clients do you have approximately?
We have less than 100 clients.
Awesome. And probably everyone's thinking, well, Mike, how do you do that? So that is what I want to talk about today, because I think by you not really giving away too much information for free anymore. And I know you came up with a really good term for that. You'll be able to share with a lot of other accounting professionals out there on how they can really have a thriving practice with under 100 clients. So let's start with what you maybe used to do, right? Like, how has giving away, tax tips and other information for free hurt your business and firm in the past?
Well, it's hurt it recently and in the past. I mean, the thing is because, it just commoditizes your knowledge and it really cheapens it. And the client really doesn't really get it normally. And then nothing generally happens. You don't get retained. Or what happens a lot with CPA firms is then when you retain clients, you have write downs because it just takes you so much time to do it. There's no, it's a negative cash flow to get new clients, right?
Right. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, marketing takes time. Looking at implementing, bringing on new customers and putting them in your software takes time. And a lot of times, if you're not getting a good upfront fee from a tax planning engagement, it's a negative cash flow because, for example, I don't key in any returns and I don't key in any data. So I have to pay people to do that, right? Or I have to, or if you're a smaller CPA firm, you have to take your time to do that. And a lot of times, so it's very important for several reasons that you share the correct information with the clients at the correct time. And we have a whole strategy, thanks to you, that we actually now, instead of, I always would go in and not share all the information, but I did, going through your class, I realized I was sort of the sales whore and I would just give a lot of the free information away and not close the business or not get the client to act in an appropriate way. And it wasn't only hurting my business, but it would also hurt them because a lot of times they would not go with us or they would delay for a year or two. And then when we got them on, they would see how much money in taxes they saved, and we couldn't go back and get the 2 or 3 years in some instances that we could have gotten.
Right. So share with us a story when you commoditize your knowledge and you basically cheapen your knowledge because you were a sales whore in your business, right? Like that one story that was really impactful that really made you say, you know what, I'm changing it. I'm no longer going to do that anymore. Not only because it hurt you and your firm, but it also hurts the clients when we do this.
So there's a perfect story. And actually, it's almost a before and after story because it's really the same client that we talked about.
Let's talk about the before part for this part.
Well, the before part, I was talking to this client and it was in 2018 and we were discussing, and he knew I had helped one of his other clients. And, I couldn't get him off his butt to act. Right. So the thing is, and then finally he came in and signed the engagement letter. And what we saw was basically in 2017, he had paid over, just through some simple planning through accounts payable management. I mean, nothing really complicated. He could have lowered his taxes by about $120,000.
Wow. And so now that you're reflecting on that, right? Where do you feel that you commoditized your knowledge in dealing with him where it took him over a year or 2 years to get off his butt and engage with you, right? So the other accountants and accounting professionals listening can stop doing what you're about to share?
Well, I think we focus too much on our knowledge instead of on his pain, right? So the thing is that really, unless you can get a client where they're ready to act, and just give them free tax tips doesn't do that, right? You've got to bring the problem to their attention. You got to bring the knowledge of where they're going, if they don't do anything.
Yep. And focusing more on the client's pain points versus like what you were doing, which was, your knowledge and what you could do for them. It didn't move them in order to engage with you. So what do you do? What do you do different now today in the firm? What is the biggest shift that you did a 180, that someone listening who might have not been to class yet, by the way, for everyone listening, Mike was a student of our 8-week mastery training sales course. He did amazing. But, for those of you that are still just dabbling with trying things out, what's like 1 or 2 things that you have changed in your firm and are no longer doing anymore? So, a client like, I don't know what his name was, the guy that could have saved $130,000 in taxes, it really hurt him by not engaging, right? So when we feel like we're giving away all this information for free or tax tips, that's not solving our client's massive problem, but it's our job to move them into action, right? So what's the one or two things that you do now into moving people into action that might be a little dormant?
Well, the first thing is you have to strategically assess your use of information based upon what you know about the client, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, Michelle, we were talking about this in one of our coaching calls. We were meeting with a client the other day, a very large client that we know we can help with tax planning and everything. And where we focused our information to show that, you want to share some information with the client to show you're credible sometimes, right?
Right.
But you want to share the right amount of information. We focused on helping him with some outsourced accounting information, right? Some knowledge about that, right? And so with that client, we were able to show that we could help him some with some outsourced accounting through his controller was very happy with some of the ideas that we shared with them, right? And then basically we were able to move him to where he was sharing tax returns with us. And then we were going to go back to a tax plan. So basically, and he wanted us to come back with a tax plan. And what we normally do is we'll charge an implementation fee with our tax plan. So that's a strategic use of information. Another, sometimes we had a referral the other day, but it was what I would call an unusual referral, where one of our smaller clients was referring a very large client, about a $26 or $27 million a year client that had $2 or $3 million net income. And the guy who was referring to us was $100,000 income a year. And that basically,
wow.
That probably shouldn't really be a client, but he was such an entrepreneur. I loved him. I mean, he just was a young kid that's got 3 locations now and everything. But you're a very, very, very fun guy to hang with. But the thing is we were talking about him, me and my assistant the other day, and said we wouldn't have even accepted him under Michelle's rules. And he still does cause us some problems and stuff. But he referred us as great client. But the client was sort of looking at us like, and he's pretty sophisticated tax-wise, but was not getting any tax planning and stuff, and was already talking about moving some Puerto Rican corporations and stuff. So, one idea I feel pretty safe sharing with people sometimes is a captive idea, because the captive is so complicated and really hard to implement that really you can still make a lot of money. And the thing is, it didn't give it away, but all of a sudden it changed the discussion, because he was looking at us as someone, hey, you work for the small guy. I don't know if you can help me to.
Right.
Well, you're much more knowledgeable. Why don't you take a look at our returns and, meet with my controller and then see if we can do a tax plan and implement some ideas to save him some money on taxes, So that was a strategic use. I don't know if I was being a sales whore. I mean, I was going to ask you that in your quick. But the thing is,
I think this is really great. And for those of you listening, I think you've all gotten to know me now a little bit, and I'm not the techie person. So that is where it's up to you as to what is the safe idea to share. So I think this is a really great topic for today, Mike. And I think it's knowing you don't want to give away the farm and give them all this information, because when you do it for free, no one values free, right? No one will ever follow through on what you say, number one. But number two, I think with this guy that was pretty sophisticated, he was talking about the Puerto Rican stuff. He's doing 27 million. I think there's an opportunity for you to shine, but it's what can you give away as a safe idea to share where you're not going to be a sales whore and you're really strategic about it. So Mike, let's come up with a couple other ideas for everyone listening. If they don't have a $27 million client, but let's say they have a $100,000 client, like your guy with the 3 locations, and knowing what you know now, right? What would be another great use of a safe idea to share with a client that shows that you're sort of sophisticated? Not sort of, you all are, but doesn't give it away, where they can take your idea and run with it and go somewhere else. What would be another idea of some safe information to share?
Well, okay, so what I would do is when I meet with a client, I assess what is the best way I can help the client, right? How can I serve this client the best? And how can, the biggest thing, how can we pay for ourselves with this client? So there's generally, most of us are out there, we're selling three things, right? We're selling a tax plan, right? We're trying to help a client save money. We're selling compliance work. We might be selling outsourced accounting. So you can tell I'm a good CPA. There's actually four things, right? And then we're selling consulting work, the consulting, the profit first, or the, as one of our classmates sold pumpkin plans and different things. So when you determine, I always think it's a good area to go into some of the areas that you're not trying, that you don't think is the highest and best use of where you're selling, bring them some ideas for their business, bring, some ideas that they really can't implement themselves, what I'm saying? But the thing is like, you can always talk about key performance indicators with the client, start talking about their finances, their accounting, about managing those, right? About moving the business forward, and, just get the credibility, get the conversation going. And like you say, get them talking about themselves, right?
Right.
Because it's very, a lot of people, even they won't tell a client anything. And then somewhat that, to me, sort of ruins the rapport. But you always want to talk to them about something that's valuable to them, but it might not be what you're trying to get them to do. Because, I always find that a tax plan is, our experience when I look at our clients and our best clients, okay, and we do a lot of work for clients in consulting and in the other areas, the outsourced accounting and things like that. But they all have come from meeting them and helping them lower their taxes legally, right? I mean, so the thing is to us, that's one of the best ways to secure value. So that's where we usually want to start, right? Because if you go in and you save a client $80,000 in taxes, $40,000 in taxes, and that creates a lot of loyalty and value. So then when you start moving into the other areas of service, they already trust you, and you can still get good fees, right?
Yep. No, I completely agree. So I think like you explained it so well. So first, focus on something they can't really implement themselves, but don't go into any detail. Keep it really high level, right? Talking about the KPIs and moving their business forward would be another one. And also talking to them about something that's valuable to them maybe in the future or not right now, but it's not the service that you're really wanting to help and serve them with, right? So you do all that after you figure out, well, what's the best way to service this client? And I love that. So what's another client story? Because I definitely know everyone listening loves stories, right? And, that client story that you really kind of messed up on, because you were giving away all of these, tax tips away for free. And you really had to figure out, like, I can no longer do that. And I have to start sharing just the right information.
Oh, I have a lot of those.
Well, let's just pick your best one, because I think it's really great to, we want to learn from each other's mistakes. And so that someone else listening can maybe learn from your mistake and never do it again. So we'll talk about what happened and then, reiterate one more time what you do differently today, because you have to stop giving away the stuff for free. It hurts the clients just as much as you.
Well, and the stories I'll give you are stories that hurt our business, right? So the thing is
well, just one. Yeah. One really good one, though. The one that hurt the most.
I don't want to have to lie on the couch and talk to you like you're a psychologist, but the thing is, I tell you all these stories, but one of them that really hurt the most was I got a referral, or a guy who I knew pretty well. And, we went in there, and the first thing we did, okay, was, I looked at his payroll. Believe it or not, he was paying like $1,800 a week for payroll service with some type of leasing company, but they really wasn't doing anything. And so I said, hey, let me, I introduce you to a source at Paychex. Then Paychex charged him $250 a month. So it saved him like $40,000. Okay.
Right.
Then the second thing, he was using a factoring company, right? and his businesses started making money and this and that. And, I was like, listen, you're really mature enough to start using a bank, right? Why don't we work with you and get you a bank together? And, because you're borrowing like $300,000, $400,000 a year, and you're paying, I want to say it was somewhere around 24% in interest when you add up the factoring and stuff. So we switched them to a line of credit at Prime and got them, and that was saving them about $60,000 a year. Then we started looking at his taxes. This is where, and, when he came, he was behind in his taxes, and he was going to owe $80,000 in taxes. And there was really, at that time, I hadn't been a certified tax coach and everything, but I was just looking at his return, and I realized he was on the accrual method of accounting, okay? And basically, you can switch people, especially, to the cash method of accounting, right? So the thing is we switched him, saved him $80,000. I did it all hourly, okay? And they always complained about the bills and did everything, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is they were one of our more difficult clients. And I think it was because we always commoditized ourselves, and we were just basically, and, it was one of those things where I eventually terminated them as a client. But the thing is, and I think they were going to fire us because we were, they were not happy with some of our fees or stuff, and we were doing everything very cheap. So the thing is, but that whole experience where we did so much value for the client, we never made any real money on. We never got them to the position of where we were starting to make, money. And the thing is you've got to get rid of that belief. A lot of us, and myself included, we look at a client, we say, okay, this client's going to pay us $25,000 a year for the next 10 or 15 years, so I can take a beating on the first year. You really got to get rid of that belief, right? Because the thing is you got to be profitable. The client is worth money. Yes, I agree. But the thing is you got to make money immediately. The client could sell the business. The business could have a downturn. The thing is something like I'm telling you right now could happen. I mean, if you look at the things we brought to that client annually, he's probably saved over, the tax savings was one time, but the factoring and the other thing, he probably saved at least $250,000, right?
Right. So, and this was a referral client too. So that adds a whole nother layer that we're going to have to talk about another time, about not all referrals are good referrals. But yeah, like you said, I mean, there's just so much in this. And I think, to sum it up, you just commoditize the work, and it's really difficult to recoup that money over time. And at the end of the day, you let the client go too. So yeah.
So the thing is, and if you think how much more profitable that engagement would have been if I would have just kept some of the information to myself instead of trying to be the smartest guy in the room and said, hey, I've got some ideas. I think we can do this and we can do this. And basically I'll give you, if we don't save you this much money, but because, on the operations side, you can do it on a contingency, right? And then, with the taxes, having a nice little tax plan in place, you could, like I said, is it would have been much more profitable for us. And I think it would also set the bar for the client too. You know what I'm saying? As in, this is the way we work. We do make money, right? So, but that's a good example of, just completely screwing something up.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for sharing. And I think a lot of others can resonate with you. And I think it's really important that we each learn from each other's lessons. So is there any other last words that you would like to leave it now that you've had a few mess ups and you no longer are a sales whore, on how others can really stop giving away tax tips away for free, and how to know what is the safe area for sharing the right information? Any other last words?
Well, the biggest thing is, and I think you stress on this, is the fundamentals of preparing for your meeting, okay? And just making sure you have a plan for how you're going to talk to the client when you meet with the client. And where do you feel you could help them at the highest and best value for both of you, because you want it to be a win-win. You want it to be profitable for you, and you want it to be a very pleasurable experience for your client. But that preparation is probably the most important thing. You should not walk into a meeting, with a new client without at least a plan, and, something that, you've done a little research on the client, you've looked at any financial information you have, especially if you've already gotten the returns and you're looking at them. You should have a plan of, hey, this is how we're going to deal with this client.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you, and keep that info for yourself and stop, putting yourself out there as a sales whore. Cause I know look at how much money you've made since you put all that to rest. You put that person to bed.
like I told you in class, I'm working up. I want to get to, a high price call girl, basically where at least get paid, right?
That's hilarious. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being here. It was an honor to have you.
Okay. Thank you.
What an amazing episode today with Mike here on the Abundant Accountant podcast, and so much goodness about, how much information to give away for free, and, how do you strategically plan for all these different services that each of you offers. So, really plan, like he said, prepare and plan prior to a meeting. I think definitely preparation and planning is really key, doing the research on the client, but ultimately, really planning, because you don't want to wing it. And also, if you want to learn a lot of what Mike was talking about today into more depth, I do have my 8-week mastery training on sales. If you're ever interested, I am doing free coaching sessions right now. If you head on over to theabundantcall.com, you can book one completely complimentary. You must have had an accounting business for more than 2 years, though. And again, this is really to be able to train on things that you can, solve these problems and connect the dots and really grow your firm for not only your clients, but for yourself too. And also today, remember to screenshot this episode and post it on your LinkedIn feed and tag me, Michelle Weinstein, and Mike Meilinger, and hashtag the Abundant Accountant podcast. And please tell us, what is the takeaway that you are going to implement in your firm today? And I always like seeing the posts because I like to see who's listening alongside me. So again, remember to take a screenshot right now, post it on your LinkedIn, share with us one thing that you took away that you're going to put into action today. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.